Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg, and I'm the ports presenter here at Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook, located in Culver City, California, which is right on the border between Los Angeles. So it's this big, massive metropolitan Los Angeles area with our park, Baldwin Hills, plopped right in the middle of it. So what better place to talk about human impact on the environment than right here at Baldwin Hills? Now, before we get started, this program today is being streamed via the Port's home learning programs. So it's a little different than our traditional Ports programs. Traditionally, we stream directly into one classroom with all the students in one place. But during these times, things are different. And so what we are doing is we're streaming to people's homes all over the state of California, all over the country, possibly all over the world. So it's really, really exciting. And you may possibly be joining up to 500 people in my program today. So really, 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 really exciting and fun stuff. Now, another question you may be asking yourself is, why am I here? Why am I in the park during these times when schools are closed, when restaurants are closed, when lots of people are obeying these stay-at-home orders in the state of California? And well, the answer to that is that one of California State Park's missions is to provide for the health, the inspiration, and the education of the people of California. And so while schools are shut down, while people are at home, we at Ports and the state parks are able to teach and educate you and share the natural and cultural resources of this great state, whether it be the historical parks or the environmental parks. We're able to share that with you while being able to practice safe physical distancing. For example, my colleague is about 200 feet that way. And so we're really safe here, and we're able to come out here and provide education to all the students and the teachers and the parents out there that need it during these times. Now, having said that, today's program is geared towards 3rd through 5th grade, but anybody can watch, anybody can learn what I'm going to talk about today. It's really interesting stuff. There's so much to talk about, so I have to make sure I don't talk too long, but it's really, really interesting topics, so anyone can join. But if you're interested in programs for younger viewers, maybe kindergartners, or for older viewers like high school or all ages, we have lots of programs on our schedule that fits every age group, every age level, and almost every topic. We have great, great topics from Calaveras Big Trees to La Purísima to MPAs and all this stuff. So check that out if you're looking for specific topics out there. Now, having said all of that, we're going to get started. So my program is called Human Impacts on the Environment. Now, that's a huge, huge, huge topic that encompasses so many things, whether it be pollution or whether it be population and big urban areas or even climate change. There's so many topics that encompasses. So I can't talk about all of that today. Otherwise, it would take 20, 30 years. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the biodiversity of this park, the animals and the plants that are affected by our human impacts. So we're going to discuss biodiversity here in California and its importance. And then we're going to talk about a couple of the main impacts that we have here in Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook, as well as all of Los Angeles, and it affects the whole world. So we're going to talk about a couple impacts there, not too many. And then we're going to go back, and hopefully, it's been raining here all morning, so a lot of the animals are hiding in the brush. But I want to be able to show you some of the wildlife that we have here, some of the animals that we have here, as well as some of the plants, and show you why this habitat, why this environment is so important to protect, and why we need to think about the impacts that we have on the natural environment, so we don't further harm it. And so that's kind of the summary we're going to talk about. So let's just jump right into it because it's got a lot to talk about. So having said all that, we're going to start walking. Hopefully I don't trip. It's been raining all morning, so it is wet and messy. So biodiversity, that's what we're gonna talk about. That's the underlying theme when it comes to any kind of human impact. Now, another part of California State Park's mission is to preserve the state's, California, the state's extraordinary biological diversity. Now, does anybody know what biological diversity is? It's kind of a big word, but it means something simple. So think about that. Talk to your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, whoever's around you, your dog Skippy, whoever, and discuss what do you think biological diversity is? Ooh, it looks like a lot of people know. So biological diversity, bio, like biology, biology is the study of living organisms. So biodiversity, bio is the living organisms, plants, animals, insects, snails, you name it. Anything that's alive is bio. And then diversity is simply the varying types, the different amounts. And so in the terms we're going to use today, keep it simple, but biodiversity is going to mean the amount of animals and plants on Earth and the different types of animals and plants on Earth. So whether that be birds and bats or dogs and cats, I mean, it's all the different types of animals and plants that we have in this world. Now, biodiversity here in California is so important. I'm standing here in Los Angeles, but all big area, California has so much biodiversity. In fact, California has so much biodiversity, so many animals, so many plants, so many different types that it is a hotspot. It is one out of 25 biodiversity hotspots in the whole world, So California has so much biodiversity that it's a hotspot. So that makes us need to protect it even more because we have such unique wildlife, such unique plants and animals to our area that we need to protect. Even moreover, in addition, California has the most rare species in the whole country, And we have the highest total number of species in the whole country. So we've got a lot to protect. I mean, a lot. Like back there, we got a desert cottontail. I just came across them. I had to kind of stop my rant there because we got lots of those guys, those desert cottontail rabbits, the life that we need to protect. And so California has so much biodiversity, and it's so important to protect. And that's why human impacts I'm going to discuss in a little bit, it affects that biodiversity. And that's what we always need to be aware of, is that we have so much life here. Even though I may be in the middle of a city in Los Angeles, I mean, look at this. This is teeming with life. I mean, we got desert cottontail rabbits. I don't know if you can see him. He's trying to get away from me. It just quit raining, so everything's starting to come out. It's going to get exciting. I'll hopefully be able to show you a lot of animals. But yeah, so the biodiversity, that's what's so important. Now, California has so much of this biodiversity. I'm going to say that word probably 500 times today, biodiversity, because I want to ingrain it into your brain. The biodiversity, California has so much in part due to its beautiful Mediterranean climate. Here in LA, this is a Mediterranean climate. That means it's characterized, to put it simply, it's mild, wet winters and hot, dry summers. And so it's very comfortable. Lots of people like to live here. Very comfortable, that nice sunny California, 72 degrees, very comfortable kind of climate. Now, a Mediterranean climate is important when discussing the biodiversity because Mediterranean climates have so much of it. And so California, for example, is just one out of 5 places in the world that has a Mediterranean climate. That's very rare. California is 1 out of 5 places. So there's only 5 places in the whole entire world that has a Mediterranean climate. That's a good number to remember, a good fact to remember. To add to that, to put some more numbers in there to confuse you, but to add to that, Mediterranean climates only exist in less than 3% of the world. Less than 3% of the entire world has a Mediterranean climate. However, even though it's less than 3% of the world has a Mediterranean climate, that small number contains almost 20% of the world's plant diversity. So think about that again real quick. Think about how amazing that is. Less than 3% of the entire world has a Mediterranean climate, but that climate, that tiny amount, that 3% climate in the world contains 20% of the world's plant diversity. That's a lot. That makes it all the more important to protect it. So that's really, really important. Now, earlier I said California, this beautiful LA, I was going to say sunny LA, but it's not sunny LA today. It's coming out though. But California is the one out of the 5 place in the world with Mediterranean climate. So do you guys know, think about it, do you guys know, or can you guess what the 4 other places in the world are that have a Mediterranean climate? Think about it. California is one place in the world. There's 4 other places that has a Mediterranean climate. Can you guess what it is? Can you guess? I'll give you a hint. Mediterranean says it all. Give you a guess. Do 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 do. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this map. I hope it's coming to you guys. So this is a map of the world. So that green area that you see, that's where I'm at. That's California. And there's a dot on there. It's hard to see, but it's on the south, the bottom part of the green. That's where I'm at. That's Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook. So I'm standing in the Mediterranean climate. And that's one of the zones. That's one of the zones that we have, 1 out of the 5 in the world. Now, if you travel all the way to South America, on the western side, you will reach central Chile. So Chile is another place in the world that has a Mediterranean climate, that small little area. Then if you fly northeast to that big chunk of purple up there, that's another Mediterranean climate. That is the Mediterranean Basin. That's the name. So the name Mediterranean climate comes from that area of North Africa and that Mediterranean area with Greece and those countries. So you have a big Mediterranean climate there. Then if you travel directly south, you reach the very tip of the continent of Africa, and it would be South Africa. And there's another Mediterranean climate, a little smaller, but you have Mediterranean climate there. And then finally, the last region is if you go directly east, you hit Southwest Australia, and that is another Mediterranean climate. So this area can show you, this is just about 3% of the world is highlighted in purple and green. That's the Mediterranean climate. But that area that's highlighted in green and purple contains 20% of plant diversity. So it's really, really important to know that little places, little areas in the world can contain so much life, so many animals, so many plants, so much life that we need to protect it. And protect it from our impacts that we have. And so I hope you guys remember that, because it's really, really important when it comes to protecting that. Now, these Mediterranean climates, they're comfortable. Like I said, it's California. It feels good. You know, I'm from Oklahoma, where the wintertime is freezing and it's snowing, but here it's chilly, but there's no snow. It's a very comfortable climate. And because of that, you get millions of people. I mean, Los Angeles County is about 10 million people. The state of California is 40 million people. So a lot of people are attracted to these beautiful climates. Same with South Africa. Same with the Mediterranean Basin. They're very comfortable places to go and live. But because of that, when you get so many people in one area, it damages the environment. It damages the plants and the animals that are native, that belong here. It disrupts that natural environment. And so population, human population is such a big problem when it comes to the natural environment and in human impacts. Now, one of the biggest things that humans do when it comes to impacting the environment is something called habitat fragmentation. Another big word. We had biodiversity. Now we're going to get habitat fragmentation. So it's another big word. But once again, think about that. Hopefully, you guys know what habitat is. You know, like for example, this park contains a coastal scrub habitat. That would be the name of the habitat here. The types of plants that we have, type of animals, the desert cottontails, ground squirrels, gopher snakes. That's a habitat. And then habitat fragmentation. What does fragmentation mean? Well, everybody, fragmentation simply means breaking something up into several parts. So if you have one big habitat, habitat fragmentation is breaking it up into lots of little different pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 million, da, da, da. So it's breaking up a habitat. And that's what you can see right here. What better example than Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Basin right here. So I'm standing, Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook right here. This is a habitat. It's a 58-acre park. It's beautiful. It has, we're here to protect it. We let nature be nature as much as we can. You've got all the animals, the desert cottontail, the California ground squirrel, the gopher snake, the lizards, the coyotes on occasion, and all the different beautiful plants and stuff. And they live in this habitat and they interact. Well, if you look way back there, is that the Hollywood sign? It is. There's a Hollywood sign somewhere. I don't know if I'm pointing to it. I can't really see the screen, but there's a Hollywood sign back there. And in that area, you have Griffith Park, which is one of the biggest parks, municipal parks in the country. And you have the Santa Monica Mountains. And then way back there, let me move over here. There's the skyline somewhere of LA. There we go. So you got the LA skyline. Behind that, you have the Angeles Forest, right? So you have these massive habitats over there with desert cottontails, with lizards, with gopher snakes. But because humans built all of these buildings and roads and houses and everything you see that's human made right here, because we built that, we broke up the habitat. We fragmented the habitat into smaller pieces. And the reason why that is a problem is because now our friends here, the desert cottontail rabbits, the gopher snakes, they can no longer interact with the gopher snakes in the Santa Monica Mountains. So therefore they can't reproduce, they can't grow, there's less, the food web has shrunk essentially. Now over there it's much bigger, much more land, so they're able to survive better. But here at Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook, when you break up a piece off of the main habitat, you're affecting the reproduction, you're affecting the lives of these animals. And I'm going to show you one of them that has been heavily impacted in this area that we no longer see. And here we go. So hopefully you can see that little guy. That is a cactus wren. That's a cactus wren. That is a bird that specifically lives, and you guessed it, a cactus. But when we broke up these Baldwin Hills, when the hills got broken up and we began building all these houses and roads and buildings, the habitat began to change here at Baldwin Hills. The cactuses, which were the home to this beautiful, beautiful bird, they began to disappear. And when the cactuses disappeared, so did the bird, because that was the bird's home. And so we have not seen one of these birds in Baldwin Hills since 2008 or 2009. So we've essentially lost this little guy because we broke up its habitat. It didn't have enough space, it didn't have enough cactuses, and so therefore it could no longer live in the Baldwin Hills. And so that's why habitat fragmentation is so serious. I'm going to introduce you to another friend of mine who also used to live here, but because of habitat fragmentation, no longer exists in these Baldwin Hills. Oh, I guess, oh, I'm not here anymore. Sorry. But I was going to show you a picture of a trapdoor spider, but the picture must have disappeared from my phone. But there's lots of animals that used to live here, but they no longer can because we've built way too much human structures that get in the way. And so that's just an important thing to know, is the habitat fragmentation. So I'm going to stop there with that. But another thing I really want to talk about that is really important here to the Baldwin Hills, a big human impact, is invasive species. Invasive species. That's another big word, or introduced species. That's a better way to start it. Do you guys know what an invasive or an introduced species is? Anybody out there know? Raise a hand. We've got lots of them here at this park that don't belong. They're everywhere. There's about 3,300 invasive plant species in the country. It's way too many. And so invasive species, oh, nice, you got your hands up, good. So invasive species are a huge, it's considered by most scientists the second most harmful impact to biodiversity. And that is because invasive species, like those back there, what they do is they get into the environment, they get into a new habitat, and they just go wild. They take over because they usually don't have the natural predators that they did in their home place, because they're in a new place. They didn't evolve with these animals. And they're very harmful because they get rid of, they outcompete. They do better than our native species here. And so they become very threatened, whether it be plants or animals. And so I'm not going to go into it too much, but just remember, invasive species is a massive, huge impact on the environment. And you might ask yourself, well, how is that a human impact? Well, that's because we bring them places. Humans for thousands of years have been transporting and moving seeds and crops and ornamental plants and trees for thousands of years, whether it's for food or decoration. And so sometimes it's intentional. Like a lot of times they bring flowers and plants here to look pretty. Other times it's unintentional. Maybe a plant or a seed got on inside of a boat, and then that boat went from London to New York City, and it got transported unintentionally. But the point is, most invasive species are due to humans and their movement. So it's a very, very important thing. But we're going to stop at that one right now because I want to show you the species here at the park, this coastal scrub habitat. That's not just at this park, it's in this whole region. But it's threatened, like I said, because of too many people breaking up the habitat, bringing in species that don't belong. This habitat, this coastal scrub habitat, is at risk for extinction, plants dying off, animals dying off, like the cactus wren. We no longer see him anymore. And so I want to show you plants and animals that are still here and why it's important we protect them from habitat fragmentation and invasive species. So I got one of my favorite plants here at Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook. Make sure I don't fall over. Is my California sagebrush. Now, California sagebrush is not a sage, if you're wondering. It's part of the sunflower family. Fun fact for me. But it's called a California sagebrush. And the whole coastal scrub habitat got its name from this one. It's a very integral, very important part of the coastal scrub habitat. And that is because lots of animals and insects rely on this plant. Bees, butterflies rely on it for pollination. They come here for the pollen and the nectar. They rely on this plant. Birds rely on it for nesting. Lizards and snakes and rabbits rely on it for shade underneath. So it provides a function for almost every single animal here in this habitat. Now, another thing that's kind of sad is going back to birds that no longer exist here. The California gnatcatcher is a bird that was native to this area, and it only lives in places that have a lot of this California sagebrush. Now, we still have this at the park, but we don't have as much as we used to, so that bird doesn't come around as much anymore. It's not able to nest. So it's just another reason how the biodiversity, all these animals, all these plants, And the connection between them is so important to have, because if you lose one, you can lose another, and then another, and then another. And that becomes really important because of our health. Humans' health relies on that. Our health relies on it. We rely on biodiversity for food, for water, for medicine even. Plants today, 80% of our medicine comes from plants. So it's really, really important to understand the biodiversity. And this guy is one such thing. Now, aside from animals and plants, this plant has been part of human history for centuries. Native Americans used to live on this land way before I was standing here, way before Mexican, Californian rancheros, way before the Spanish missions were controlling this land. Before all that were the Native Americans that lived here. And they used this plant for ceremonies, for cleansing ceremonies, for healing wounds. It's a very, very sacred plant to Native Americans. So it's been in their history for so long. And in more modern times, during Mexican California, for example, it was also used by humans. It was used by cowboys. They called it cowboy cologne because, well, cowboys don't smell so good. You're riding a horse all day, you're not taking a shower, you're kind of stinky. And so they would rub this on their body because it smells like a sage, and it's a very spicy, really aromatic, it's really good smell. And they would rub it on their bodies to mask their stinkiness. And so it's been used by humans for centuries. It's been used by plants, pollinators, animals for thousands and thousands of years. So it's a very, very important plant to the ecosystem. And habitat fragmentation, invasive species, they threaten the existence of that particular plant. And so that's just one example, one species that's part of all this biodiversity that we have here at Baldwin Hills in these coastal scrub habitats. That's just one plant that's so important. We have lots and lots of other plants here. I'm gonna walk, I wanna show you some animals. I know they should be coming out, but we'll see. And so we got lots of different plants here. Everything you're looking at, most of it's native, but we still got, we got bladder pod down there. That's a native. Black mustard is not native. And it's a constant battle. Here at parks, we have a wonderful, wonderful staff, a maintenance staff that's always fighting and battling these invasive species. And we have volunteer groups. If you go to, I forget the website, but it's a Parks Foundation. They conduct volunteer work where you can come to this park and you can take out the invasive plants and help plant native plants. And so it's really, really, really important stuff, and lots of community stuff that you guys can be a part of. So look it up. If you're interested, you can always contact me through Baldwin Hills. Love to set you up with these great opportunities. Real quick, this is it's called Big Salt Bush. One, because you guessed it, it's really big. And two, it's salty looking, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys can see, but it looks like it's covered in salt. So it's a very practically named plant. They got it right on the nose on the naming of that one. And so what kind of plants do you guys have at home? While you're seeing me walk through all these plants and discussing the importance of this biodiversity, what kind of plants do you guys have at home? Think about that. Think about it. Is it a native plant or is it a non-native plant? Whether it be in a yard, or maybe you have plants in a pot, maybe plants at your school that you went to or used to go to, or plants in your neighborhood. Take a look and just think, ask yourself, is it native or non-native? Because it's really interesting to see the combinations that we have in the state of California, because we have a lot of non-native plants, but luckily we still have a lot of native plants too. And so that's what we're trying to protect. So this is another really, really important one. We have a lot of this. I think I picked the saddest one out of all of them, but this is a brittle bush, California sunflower. Now, this one is a native plant. It's been here for thousands and thousands of years. Native Americans also use this for their traditions as well. there is an indigenous word that means it watches the sun. And so very similar to our naming of sunflower. But this plant is also so special um, because so many animals, so many insects rely on this plant right here. There's an ant, and if you can see the insects on there right there, there's an ant, a specific ant that is attracted to the seeds of this plant. The seeds of this flower, it's covered in this sticky, sweet, delicious substance, liquid, and it attracts the ants, and the ants scurry up to the flower. They take the seed because they're attracted to it. They take the seed, they scurry on back down, they go underground to their nest, they eat all that sticky substance, that sweet, sweet goodness, and when they're finished, they throw away the seed in their trash can. They have like a dumpster. Rabbits, oh, and they're coming, and sorry, attention span, but I was gonna show you the rabbits. Anyway, but they go underground, they finish eating their seeds, and they drop the seeds in their little dumpster trash can area, which is underground. So think about it, they're pre-planting, they're planting the seeds of this flower. So this flower relies on the ants to plant the seeds for them. But the problem is we have invasive species. There's the Argentine ant, a very, very, very invasive ant that has come into California and completely, it's wiped out lots of native ant species, ants that belong in this area, and it's replaced them. But those Argentine ants don't do the same thing. They don't do the same job. And so that's another reason why invasive species are so problematic and so dangerous, because they don't perform the same job as the native ants, as the native plants and animals do. And so that's just a great example of the interactions and why biodiversity is important and how invasive species impact that biodiversity. So I just wanted to introduce you to this guy because that's another native plant that's just so important to this area. And that's just the thing, is almost every native plant has a functioning use. Oh, I don't know if you saw them, functioning use in its ecosystem because it's native. It's evolved over thousands and thousands of years. Since I'm here, I want to show you this guy too. This is, I was mentioning the California sage brush, which wasn't actually a sage. It was actually sunflower family. This is a white sage. We have white, purple, and black sage here at Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook. We have a lot of sage. You find a lot of sage in coastal scrub habitats. And this is a white sage. Because once again, you guessed it, it's white. And so it's a white sage, just like the other two plants. This has been used by Native Americans for centuries and thousands of years because of its medicinal qualities. Sages, whether it be black, purple, or white, are known for their medicinal value, their healing. They can be a medicine. They can help with your cold. The leaves of this plant can actually be boiled to make a tea that's supposed to help you with a cold. And in modern times, it's actually been proven by scientists that it has antibacterial properties, meaning get rid of bacteria, specifically the smell from bacteria. So there was a study that showed that this could make really good deodorant. So you could, I don't know if you just rub it on, but you could make a deodorant out of this white sage because it has really good antibacterial properties and it smells really good. Sages smell really good to most people. It is kind of subjective. But yeah, that's a white sage. But humans, once again, doing what they do, they've impacted this plant severely. First of all, it's threatened because we live in the city and these plants can't live down in the city in the neighborhoods. But it's also impacted because lots of people over harvest this. They pick it too much. They pick way too much of it. A lot of people these days will pick too much of it and they make these little smudge sticks for cleansing, for smoking, for like kind of like incense, like going through your house. And the problem with that is that they pick too much, and so these plants are threatened because people are just picking too much of it. And so that's another one that's, we have to protect, and the human impacts, whether it be habitat fragmentation, the invasive species, which are also threatening it, or us just over harvesting, is something we have to think about, because it's in danger, because of us. But once again, it's another plant, and lots of animals rely on this plant as well. Once again, for pollination, for nectar with the butterflies, bees, as well as providing the shade underneath for snakes, squirrels, you name it. So it's another part of this community that's integral, meaning it's necessary. It has to be here, and if it's not, it affects all the other animals too. Now I'm going to go up here just because I wanted to show you one of the most popular residents of these Baldwin Hills, and that's a desert cottontail. Now these desert cottontails are pretty adorable. They're the most numerous here. I'm gonna take this off. I'm gonna turn it around for you. Bear with me. And so I don't know if can you guys see those rabbits. So those are those desert cottontail rabbits. Let me try to stabilize this a little better. I don't have a good stabilizer. But that's a desert cottontail rabbit. I don't know what he's just sitting there. Oh, there's another one that came in. And so those desert cottontail rabbits are native to this area. They're native to this part of California. They're native to the American Southwest. Oh, we got 3 of them. Nice. They're native to this area, and so they're very important to protect. Just to give you some quick information about these little guys is they don't get too big. They get to around 2 or 3 pounds. So basically the size of a small cat or a very large New York rat. Take your choice. They get about 13 to 17 inches long, and their ears are about 3 to 4 inches long. This guy I think he's fallen asleep, but usually their ears are erect. They're always standing straight up usually, and that's to help dissipate heat. They get rid of the heat, because they're usually, technically we're in the Mediterranean climate, as I was mentioning earlier, but a lot of these guys live in the desert. They live in, over in Arizona and east in the Death Valley. And so they need to be able to get rid of heat. They have to cool their bodies down. And so their ears help do that. They have these long, erect ears that help get rid of the heat. Another reason they deal with heat is through not coming out during the daytime. When it gets hot, when it's 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., you don't see very many of these guys walking around. They usually stay hidden in the brush, underneath this brittle bush, or the white sage, or the California sagebrush. They stay hidden under those plants that I was showing you. And they usually only come out in the morning time and the late evening, in order to eat and interact with others. I apologize for the shaking. I don't have any good stabilizer, but they usually come out early morning. And so when it comes to the food, when they do come out and eat, they eat mainly grass. About 90% of their diet is grass. The other 10% consists of like forbs, which are essentially like these kind of plants. They'll nibble on the stems and stuff of that. But they are herbivores. They only eat those animals. Oh, they do eat insects and other small things as well. Now, an interesting fact about them is, like several other animals, in order to get all the nutrition they can from their meals, they eat their poop the first time. So they do eat their poop. They eat their food, they eat the grass, and then when they poop, they'll eat it again. They eat it so they can get all the nutrients they can from the food, because food is precious. At this park, not so much. They got an abundance of food. But in the desert, in harsher conditions, they need to get all the nutrients they can. And so that's another reason they get all their water from their food. They don't need to drink water. They get all their water from their food. So just a really interesting kind of thing. I'll try to get a little closer, but I think he's gonna skedaddle off. So anyway, so that's a desert cottontail rabbit. And they're the most prominent guests here. We got lots of them. I mean, we got hundreds and hundreds of these guys. And so they're just one of the animals that we have. We have California ground squirrels. We got some gopher snakes, no poisonous snakes. We only have 4 main kinds of snakes here: gopher, California king snake, coach whip, racer snake. We used to have rattlesnakes here. About a little over 100 years ago, there would have been rattlesnakes on these hills. But due to habitat fragmentation, breaking up the habitats, rattlesnakes couldn't survive in such a small area. And so they just no longer exist in this area. And so there's lots of wildlife here. Not big wildlife, no mountain lions, no bobcats, no bears, anything like that. But there is a lot of wildlife, and it's important. The animals and the plants that live here are important to protect. And so I recommend, checking out California Parks Foundation if you want to volunteer here, anything can help. There's lots of different resources out there. And now, I thank you again. I appreciate you coming on this journey. I hope you learned something about biodiversity. I hope you learned something about habitat fragmentation. I hope you learned a little something about invasive species. And I just hope you learned, how important it is to protect our natural environment and what we do here at state parks in protecting these places for not only the natural environment, but for the health, the education, inspiration for all the people of California. And so once again, thank you so much. Check out our other programs. We have so many great programs that delve into all the natural and cultural resources that we have in this great state of California. And be safe out there. Wash your hands. Social distance 6 feet. When you go out, wear a mask. If you ever go outside, protect yourself and protect yourself from others, and just be safe. We're going to get through this. And when we do get through this and parks open up again, these parks are going to be here for you. We encourage you, once they do open, they are still closed now, but when they do open, come to these parks, enjoy these amazing resources that we have. We have 280 state parks. So go visit and just appreciate the resources that we have, which are your resources as well. And so having said all that, once again, thank you so much for joining me here from Baldwin Hills Scenic Overlook. My name is Greg, and I say goodbye. Have a good day, guys.